Hello everyone, I'm Don Pratt, host of a show here on Rogers TV where we give you a perspective on policing in your community. Welcome to Policing York Region. Today's show is going to be all about schools, back to school safety, and we're going to have Constable Robin Lockie from the 3 Corps on to chat about some of the stuff inside of school. Right now, we're going to have Sergeant Karen Hodge with the traffic safety programs to talk about road safety and its value around the schools. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So some of the areas that we often hear about is, you know, of course, with, you were saying, with more people being on the sidewalks now, perhaps kids crossing the roads. What are some of the things that maybe we should be watching for?
So as we start to see more kids on the sidewalks, the roadways, crosswalks, as school starts, we want all the drivers to be very aware that there's more people there, and to give those pedestrians the right of way. One of the sayings that we use in this area is right of wait. You know what? You know, even though pedestrians have the right of way, the vehicles are always going to win. So we want to make sure that the drivers are making sure that they're putting those pedestrians first and their safety. There's more kids out on the roads with school being back, some with and some without parents for the first time, which is critical time for kids in learning.
Yeah, of course.
So as a driver, we want you to just sort of slow down, be aware of what's going on around them, and watch out for those little kids. Yeah,
and I'm sure, especially as you're saying, you know, children for the first time perhaps walking to school, they may already have, you know, a bit of nerves going on and perhaps not paying full attention to their surroundings.
Yeah, and we have to remember they're kids. And they're not always 100% focused on attention and safety. That's our job to teach them. So they may get distracted by something simple as, you know, say their ball falls onto the roadway.
Or another kid walking across the street.
Anything. And we want to make sure that the cars that are in those school areas are going at a speed that they're able to stop in a hurry should something come out onto the roadway. Yeah,
of course. And so with, you were talking in school areas, you know, and driving in close proximity to the schools, we're talking about congestion.
Yeah, so I've been police officer for a couple of years, quite a few years actually.
More than a couple, I think.
Yeah, in York Region. I grew up in York Region. I was a student in York Region. And one of the things that we have noticed as officers, as administrators in the schools, that a lot of kids are getting driven to school now.
Okay.
So fair enough. However, what it's posing for the schools is a lot of congestion in and around the school area, which then causes some safety issues for the kids that are trying to walk through all of these cars.
So schools or school properties weren't actually designed with the drop and ride?
No. The majority are designed with a drop and ride or kiss and ride, whatever you know you want to call it. They're not designed for that. However, it is being, the roadway is being used as such. And so we're really trying to encourage parents who have children that are responsible and that are of a reasonable age to, if you have to drive your kids to school, drop them off a block before the school so that they're getting a little bit of responsibility walking to school, and you know, we're not creating congestion in front of the schoolway, which is then causing safety issues for the other kids, for the buses, for all of the other traffic.
Yeah, no, we definitely want to keep them safe while they're en route to school, right?
Exactly.
And it does make sense. Drop them off, you know, perhaps a block away or even down the street.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's ultimately going to keep every kid safer as they're trying to make their way into the school. Probably less crashes in the school areas as well.
Yeah, of course.
And just less congestion in and around the school areas so that the administrators at the school can do their job to get the kids in there safely.
Right, and you, with as far as walking to school, buddy system?
Absolutely. You know what? A lot of kids are walking to school for the first time by themselves without parents. Put a plan together with a neighbor so that kids are walking together. As long as there's 2 or more together, there's safety in numbers, there's safety in decisions that are being made based on what's happening. It's always a better thing to have them doing. And you know what? It gives them confidence and it helps build up who they are and makes them a more responsible child.
Right. And you know, when we were talking about, you know, so drop your child off perhaps a block away and you know, let the child walk to school. We need to remind them to walk on the sidewalks.
Yes, those sidewalks are there for a reason.
And obey the crosswalk.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of schools do have crosswalks with
Yeah.
crossing guards
Yes.
in and around them. So tell your kids to listen to those crossing guards. They're there to get your kids to school safely. They know the rules. And as drivers, I'd like to encourage the drivers to obey the crossing guards.
Yeah, of course.
You know, they're
Yeah.
stepping out into live traffic on a daily basis for the safety of the kids.
Yes.
Slow down
Yep.
and stop for them.
Pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Observe
Yeah.
the rulings.
Absolutely. Get off your phones.
Phones is always a big topic. It
Yeah.
always brings us into the distracted driving.
Yeah, yeah. And when we're going to start having thousands more children on our roads and sidewalks, really we need drivers to put their phones down because
Yes.
you can't do both well
No.
at the same time.
Now, a lot of us like to think that we multitask well.
There's some things that are great to be
Yes.
good at, and multitasking is a great thing. Driving a car and being on a phone is a multitasking thing we'd like to set to the side.
Yeah. They're not two things that
They
work
don't
well
go.
together.
They don't go to. They do not go well together. And at the end of the day, your priority is driving.
Yes.
And driving safely.
Yes.
And to even think that something could go wrong, the worst thing ever could be to hurt somebody or kill somebody, right? So we've seen it. We don't want to see it again. And just put the phones down. Get those
Yeah,
kids to school.
of
Get to
course.
work where you need to. And if not, there are going to be officers out in full force.
So this time of the year, you run specific programs toward
do.
back to school?
We do. We make sure that all the officers that are out on the roads are fully aware that there's an expectation that they're going to be in the school areas.
Right.
Making sure that different traffic rules are being followed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we want to make sure that everyone's getting where they need to go safely. That's number one, right? So during the start of the school year, as trends and activities change for both drivers and for the students, the officers are out there looking for any, offenses
Yes.
that are in school zones. So,
Yeah.
you know, people that are speeding, people that aren't stopping at stop signs, people that are on their phones. And when I say stop signs, I don't just mean your stationary stop sign at the corner. I'm talking also about the stop signs that are posted on all of the school buses.
Yes. Okay, so can we talk about that? So we're following a big yellow school bus.
Yep.
The lights come on.
Yep.
Obviously, the vehicles behind that school bus know to stop.
Yep.
I've heard
They must
discussion
stop.
about the oncoming traffic.
Okay, so, excuse me. So when you are approaching a bus that has its stop arm out,
Yes.
if you are on a highway or a roadway that doesn't have a physical barrier between
Okay.
you, okay, so just a painted line, there is an expectation you will stop.
Right.
The law states you
So
will.
all lanes, whether it's
Yeah.
opposing
Yeah.
or traveling with.
Yeah. The only time that rule does not affect traffic that are coming towards the bus
Right.
is when there's a physical median
Okay.
that divides the highway.
Right.
The rationale behind that is if there is a median, it's a busy enough highway, a school bus route will not be dropping a child off to cross an entire 4-lane, say, roadway
Right.
that's divided by
Right.
a physical barrier.
So anywhere that there is a median, you're not required to. If there's no median.
If you're coming towards a bus.
Right.
Anyone behind a bus has to stop no matter what.
Right, right. So, and then the same thing, we were talking about distracted driving.
Yep.
Speed, a factor,
Speed is a big
and
factor.
particularly in school zones.
Yep, yep. So you're going to see officers in the next couple of weeks starting to actively enforce speed in and around the schools,
Right.
simply because speed is what will cause injury.
It's a huge factor.
Yeah, so just slow down. There's a speed limit in a school area for a reason.
I've seen, it looks like it's York Regional Police and perhaps even the municipality and/or some of the smaller areas are using or deploying signs, radar signs.
Yep.
At the sides of the roads.
Yeah, so one of the reasons those go up is to obviously educate the drivers what their speed is.
Right.
It shows other people what your speed is, but they're also tracking.
Right.
They also will track what the trends in that area.
Okay.
So they have shown to decrease speeds in certain areas, but again, it's another reminder that that's there for a reason because people aren't obeying.
So it's a reminder to the motorists, and it's also, I suppose, a device for you to learn, to better learn the area.
Yep, yep. Yeah, there's a lot of times that we think an area is a problem.
Right.
And we'll put those up just to remind people and to track how much traffic is flowing in that area.
And so you'll be deploying those anywhere that you see as a high need.
Yeah, they can move pretty quickly into a lot of different places. So
I'm sure
yeah,
they can.
yeah. So they'll be out and about.
I'm sure
They're
they
out
can.
most of the year, anyways.
Yeah.
But we'll make sure that they're in school areas throughout the fall.
Right.
For sure.
And back to the school bus safety piece. We were talking about when kids are being picked up or dropped off out on the roads. But then, we also have to respect that there is designated loading and unloading zones at the schools.
Yes. So
And those aren't for vehicles.
those are not for vehicles. So the reason they have that is so that the kids can get off the buses into the schoolyard, into the school in a safe
Safely.
manner without being having cars in the way.
Fantastic.
So
Karen, that's been a great bit of information. And it's always good to see you, and thank you so much for coming on the
anytime.
show.
All right.
That wraps up the first part of Policing York Region. We'll be right back after these messages.
With back to school season very quickly approaching, it's time to remind drivers to pay extra attention and be extra careful in and around school zones. You can guarantee that our officers are going to be out there at least a couple of weeks before the start of school, making sure that people are watching for stop signs, coming to complete stops, minding their speed and being very careful, and reminding drivers that most school zones in York Region are actually community safety zones, so fines could possibly be doubled. Reminding people to wear seatbelts when they're in school zones and everywhere for that matter, and to make sure that your kids are strapped in appropriately, especially into child seats, and that they're done up the way they need to be done. And we're also going to be out there reminding people to limit the distractions, especially in school zones. It's so critically important. It takes only a second of distraction that could result in a terrible collision on our roads. It's also a great time as a parent to remind your kids about the dangers of school zones and the dangers of cars in school zones. That they need to be careful, and we see it year after year. Kids are very excited the first few days of school, and sometimes they forget to stop completely at the edge of a road before walking across, or to cross where there's a crosswalk. So reminding people, definitely go to a designated crosswalk area, obey the signs and signals from crossing guards if they're there, and just to be safe in general around school zones. We know that time is quickly approaching, so be familiar with the school zones, be safe, and do everything you can, because we don't want any tragedy to begin what's going to be an otherwise great school year in York Region.
Thank you for that short message from York Regional Police. And now I have the opportunity of chatting with Constable Robin Lockie with the 3 District Core Unit. Robin, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about, we've already done a short piece on, the traffic and the safety, basically on the outside of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move inside the school. What can we talk about student safety inside of school?
Well, school safety inside school is as important as outside of the
course,
school. One of the issues that we have is we have a mandate with York Regional Police as well as the school boards to make sure that kids are arriving to school safely.
Okay.
A lot of times, some miscommunication happens between the parents and the school board, and information is not updated.
Okay.
Okay. When that happens, when the school tries to contact these parents, family members, or what have you, sometimes these phone numbers are no longer. A lot of people change cell phones numerous times.
Okay.
You know, that information, if it's not updated, they can't keep in contact with the family members of these students. So if an event happens where the child is going to be absent, the parent needs to understand that it's their responsibility to contact the school. If that doesn't happen,
Right.
the school attempts to contact the family members. If they can't get into contact with the family members,
Okay.
we have an issue there because now the child needs to be reported missing to York Regional Police.
So now you're tasked with.
So now we're tasked, our resources are used
Right.
for a simple thing where the child is at home sick. So we we want parents to understand that as much as you may not think it's important that the school has your current information, it's as important as advising your credit card company.
It is.
Let everybody know who your contact people are and making sure that information is updated on a yearly, bi-yearly, whatever basis.
It's a good reminder to update your contact
Yes.
information.
And it saves us from having to come knock on your door and have two
Sure.
police officers checking up on you and your family.
It's using resources that otherwise really shouldn't
Exactly.
need to be, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So my child's now in school,
Yes.
and what are some of the things that we're looking
So
for?
we have officers that attend each school. So whether they're in elementary school, high school, Catholic, non-Catholic schools, we have officers that are in each of these schools. They all play a different role
Okay.
in their attendance at the school. But each school in York Region is visited by a police officer.
So you have officers designated specifically for school programs?
Yes. So in the elementary school, they're youth education officers, and they attend the schools and they keep that link between the young kids and York Regional Police, and they teach them a lot of important things that kids may not have any knowledge about. Bullying, internet safety, drug safety, anything.
Right.
Any little thing that may pop up that kids need to start learning early about so that they don't make the wrong decisions when it's too late.
It's a great stage of life to be engaged with policing. And,
Right.
and, you know, we're always saying on the positive policing side, it's a great way to start, isn't it?
Right. And it's nice to have that bond with the elementary school kids because they're still at the age that they look up to
Yes.
mentors.
Yes.
And we can still be the good guy and, you know, they understand, they see us, we can be welcoming, they're not afraid of us. If something happens on the street, then they understand that we're a welcome face and that we're a safe face and they can come and talk to us.
And the hope is, of course, that they're going to carry that with them
Right. To their older
in their
years.
older school years.
Yes. So likewise in the high schools, we have officers that attend each high school.
Okay.
And it's kind of the same, a little bit different in some areas, but it's still that link between York Regional Police and young adolescents, right? We want them to understand that we are the place of safety. We are the go-to people if
course.
you're a victim, if you're scared, if something's happening at school and you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody else, you can use us as an ally to tell that information to, right?
Right.
But on the flip side, people still have to understand that we have a job to do. And if there's
Absolutely.
any allegations of a criminal nature, any minor criminal offenses, we're in there as well to police that.
Right.
We work alongside with the school board administrative staff to deal with those situations and hopefully get them resolved in a positive manner rather than a negative manner, you know, where it goes down the line in criminal charges or Youth Criminal Justice Act charges. We don't want it to go that
Right.
far.
No, of course
so
not.
we keep a good positive relationship with the admin staff so that the kids can benefit from it.
Yeah, and trying to instill that positive message, right?
Exactly.
Keeping them wanting to engage police at a
Right.
positive level.
We're the good guys, we're not the bad guys.
Right, right. And you touched on internet safety.
Yeah, you know, this is the age of screenplay, and
Yes, it is.
we have children who have many different devices. They use it for good reasons, for knowledge-based reasons, which is fabulous, but they sometimes can also use it for negative things where internet bullying is, you know, it's skyrocketing.
Yeah.
The amount of children that have become victim, not just children, but, you know, they've become victim to internet bullying because it's easier to bully through a text than to face-to-face. So we've got to try and keep them knowledgeable on how to keep themselves safe and not to become a victim, or on the flip side, to be doing it themselves. So we try to do a lot of education with these kids because, you know, our society is a social media society where everything is social media nowadays.
It certainly is. Everywhere you look, we have social media.
Right. And, you know, and to piggyback off of Sergeant Hodges' speech about safety, you've got your internet games such as Pokemon Go type thing, where people are getting themselves into traffic issues because they're trying to find this cyber creature, and they're walking out into the middle of the street and they're getting hit. You know, they could possibly get hit by a car, or using their phones as they're driving, trying to find these internet creatures.
Internet creatures. a good
And
term for
it could cause major havoc on our streets.
No,
So,
it's certainly a distraction.
and a lot of our high school kids, you know, they're junior drivers, and if they think
course.
that, you know, they know how to drive flawlessly and use a phone to find a Pokemon,
Right.
you know, they're sadly mistaken, because, you know, it's not going to happen.
It's been proven quite clearly that
doesn't end well.
driving doesn't. No,
No,
it does, no.
it doesn't end well.
You know, we've been down that path before, and we've seen catastrophic results.
Yes, and I know that there's a lot of our community officers that have done a lot of studies and a lot
Yes.
of presentations
Yes.
on distracted driving with adolescents.
Yes.
And it hits home for a lot of people, because, you know, it only takes a second for these youths
Yes.
to make a bad mistake, and then it could be a lifelong lasting mistake.
Absolutely. So you engage the students on different levels, though, you said? Mm-hmm. Right, and you touched on the Safety Village.
Yes. So we also have the Safety Village. So a lot of our police officers in the schools, as much as we deal with all of the student body,
Right.
for the most part, it's grade 6 and up. We also have the Safety Village at the Bruce's Mill in Stouffville, who educate our children, our much younger children, grades 1 through 5. And that's a voluntary program that if your school gets in touch with the Safety Village, they can attend, and they can have education done by police officers as well as fire educators.
Right.
And they teach you simple things, you know, how to get out of a house safely. They talk about internet safety. They talk about all sorts of different things that would be in the lives of the child at that time. So they're not going to go over their knowledge base.
No, so yeah, they keep it within the age group.
Right,
Sure.
but it's great because it's a great lead-in for younger kids. You know, they go to this little miniature village,
Yes.
as it is,
Yes.
and they get to see the world through their eyes and their size. So the buildings are their size.
Right.
They've got motorized cars that are their size. Like it gets them started
Yeah.
on the right path, rather than looking at these giant buildings and, you know, these huge cars that
Maybe not as intimidating,
a little bit, yeah,
right?
not
a
as.
little bit toned down.
That's right. That's right.
And I've seen too in some of the districts where officers from the schools have been engaging students in different projects as well.
We do a lot of sporting events with these kids, and that's to also keep the bond between officers and the youth, because a lot of youths see our uniform as paramilitary. It can be very
It's intimidating.
It can be very intimidating for kids, right? So there's times that we will take off the uniforms and
Yes.
play basketball with them, or have a game of dodgeball
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
And it's great because these kids see us as human.
Yes.
As much as it sounds silly,
Yeah.
they see us as a human person rather than a police officer.
Yes.
And it's great, you know, you walk around town, and those kids remember that. They remember that interactive, fun activity that they played with a police officer.
Yeah, of course.
And as much as it sounds silly, you know, we're human.
Yeah.
And they love to do that, right? And we love to do it ourselves.
Yeah, a little
It's
bit
nice.
more like playing with the neighbor down the street than,
Exactly.
than with...
A police officer.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice for us, too, to take off the uniform and get to have that sort of engagement with the
Yeah,
kids.
sure.
Because the positive interactions are what we want. We don't want the negative interactions. So if we can nip it in, you know, if we can get them beforehand,
Absolutely.
get them to understand what we're there for,
Yeah.
and make them understand that we're not the bad guy, then hopefully we don't see them later on down the road doing criminal activity or...
No, it's back to that positive messaging, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Trying to gain their confidence.
Right.
And knowing...
Leading by example too, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, we've got to set a good example for these kids. If we're up to no good, and we're texting and driving, you know, we're not above the law. You know, we can't do that, right? They see this and they think it's
Of course.
acceptable. If a police officer can do it, why can't I?
Well, no, of course.
So,
Yeah.
leading by example, letting them know that we're human as well.
And it only makes sense. I mean, we all follow somebody, right? And of course, you know, an officer is that statement in the community that you want to know is doing the better good.
That's right. That's right.
So, Robin, thank you very much for coming
you
on the
for
show.
having
That's
me.
a great piece of information. That wraps up this episode of Policing York Region. Catch their Twitter feed for a few interesting tweets that they do along the way. For more information on this show, rogerstv.com. For more information on York Regional Police, yrp.ca. It's been great having you, and I look forward to seeing you again.